This is the Star Trek podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about episode 3 of Star Trek Picard, The End is the Beginning. Welcome back, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about the third episode of Star Trek Picard, The End is the Beginning. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out the group, I'm Chris.
We have all three members of TV Podcast Industries in the same room recording a podcast for the first time in over 200 episodes. I checked it. It's true. It's more than 200 episodes since we sat in the same room. Isn't that mad?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But I do, that song, Reach Out and Touch Me, is so just ringing in my head at the moment. It's like, I can touch you. It's real.
We truly exist. We're no longer virtual podcasters with each other. That's kind of cool.
It is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's also weird that I've kind of asked to have the camera put on. It's kind of my safety net.
We're not videoing it, unfortunately, though. We should be videoing it, because then we would have a full record of it, but our computer might crash, and we don't want that to happen, right?
Yeah.
No.
But let's get into our normal discussion as we stare at each other at a camera in the same room. We will start off this podcast talking about feedback like we did last time, feedback for episode 2. We'll go through the feedback and then we'll go into our discussion on episode 3 after we've gone through all your feedback on the last couple of episodes. If you want to send in feedback on any of the episodes to us, just email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, and you can go on to our spoiler posts and leave your thoughts up there for each of the episodes that I put the spoiler posts up for. That makes sense? Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Just.
You're close. Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Do make sure you subscribe to the podcast over on tvpodcastindustries.com, which is our website. It gives you links to our podcast anywhere that it's available. We do have a Picard podcast feed available just for Picard, but we have a feed available for all of our shows, or just the one for TV Podcast Industries if you want to hear all 454 podcasts that we've done so far.
Wow.
And 454 is a palindrome, like today, because we're recording on the 2nd of February 2020, which is 02/02/2020, and 454 is also a palindrome. So it all makes sense, right?
But we should have been recording at 2 a.m. this morning. It would have been so much better.
Yeah.
02/02/02.
Do you know, I feel like recording at 2 a.m. would never be better.
True.
No, certainly not the 2 a.m. that's just gone.
Oh, no, we were quite drunk, actually.
Yes.
This would have been a good podcast then, yeah.
A pubcast is what it probably
It
is.
would.
Anyway. Oh, I should mention early up front, right, that we do have our pub quiz going on. If you haven't listened to the end of our previous episodes, we do have a pub quiz that John does in 10 Forward, where we give out one question each week about the episode that you've just watched, and the person that gives us the most answers by the end of the season, most correct answers, let's say, that's important. The most correct answers by the end of the season will win some Star Trek goodies at the end of the season.
Yes, they will be beaming into your home via regular post.
Via regular post. It'll take about 3.5 weeks to get there, but you'll get them, I promise.
Yes, so make sure you don't miss any episodes of our series or the pub quiz by making sure you subscribe to our feed over on any Romulan or Federation podcast. And don't forget as well, to help keep the lights on, you can come over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries and just give us $1, give us €1, whatever you think to help keep the lights on. But if you don't have $1, don't worry, just spread the love by sharing the podcast.
Exactly. Why not? Let's get into feedback, guys. Our first piece of feedback came over on Podbean. I didn't know people could feedback on Podbean until I got a notification from there. But it came from one of our listeners called Rick and Morty, saying, love your Irish accents and thanks for covering this slow but beautiful reboot of Star Trek. Feels like a Deep Space Nine flavour with double-dealing Romulan death squads and room cleaners that I would happily deploy in my home.
Absolutely. Don't deploy the Romulan death squads, though.
Definitely not.
Although you could get an acid wash, of course.
That would definitely leave your home pretty clean, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. You may have no home afterwards.
Yeah, there'll be no trace of your home at all. But yeah, it does feel like a Deep Space Nine flavor, I think. It is of that kind of flavor, and of course, Next Generation.
Yes, absolutely.
I think certainly after this one, where we see the start of, the space travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite important in Star Trek, isn't it?
It is.
Eventually get to space travel. John, do you want to take the next piece of feedback?
We also got an email in from Todd. He goes, "Hey guys, enjoying your Picard podcast. I'm also enjoying Picard and excited to see some more familiar faces. As far as Picard's mysterious ailment, this is pretty clearly a reference to Irumodic syndrome that is one of the central plot elements of the series finale episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, All Good Things, Part 1 and 2. It's even mentioned as being caused by a defect in the parietal lobe, which was referenced in the Picard episode.
Oh, very good.
In the show, the defect resulting in the development of the syndrome is painted as potential, not certain. Well, the future's here now, and it seems we're finding out." Todd finishes off with, "Give the episodes a rewatch. Definitely worth it. Cheers, Todd." Yeah, thanks, Todd. Thanks for pointing as well to that central element around All Good Things, that Star Trek finale for the Next Generation. It was good because you also have Q in it. He's on the vineyard at the start as well, so there's a lot of familiar themes here as well. As they look for that temporal anomaly that's happening at 3 different times.
Yep.
In that as well, you have Picard really not being believed by anyone. They think it's part of the Irumodic syndrome and that he could all just be making it up. I really hope that they don't do that, say, for this, where all of a sudden it's just one big dream after 10 episodes. But certainly, thanks for pointing that one out as well. Although I do like Chris's theory that it comes from the Borg, just because we have the Borg in this series of Picard as well.
Yeah.
In episode 3, we do get the great facial scarrings going on from the previous Borg who've kind of been sort of rehabilitated, or at least tried to be.
Absolutely. As you can probably tell, Todd, we did go out and watch the episode almost directly after we got your email. And went, how did we forget that? And it's mentioned like about 5 minutes into the episode, Beverly Crusher goes, "I think you might have this syndrome." It's like, oh yeah, we probably should have remembered that.
I haven't watched the episode, but thank you for the pointer, because that's definitely going to be something that I now need to watch. I'm going to stick to my Borg theory just because I think a lot of people will not have watched that in years or rewatched it in years. So I think a bit of slight retconning potentially could be happening. But let's wait and see.
Maybe, but I do think that is very clear that this is what they're talking about, isn't it? So great that you caught it. I suppose we've mentioned before that we are all people that have watched all episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, but we didn't do that famous rewatch of all 300 and something odd episodes in preparation for this podcast. So there will be some things that we'll miss, and we're really delighted that people send us in their emails.
Absolutely.
Talking about the things that they've missed, because it allows us to go onto Netflix and go, oh, it's season 3, episode 5 that we need to watch for next week. So that's great.
Great stuff, Todd. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and keep the feedback rolling in.
Absolutely.
We have a voicemail from Steve Brown.
Hey guys, Steve, I don't know if I'm going to get this in quick enough for your episode 2 review of Star Trek Picard, so if not, you can put this in the next one. Just real short, because I want to watch it for the second time. Does it seem unlikely that the Romulans would be able to have this much of an intelligence network in play? I mean, I know it's been 14 years since the supernova or whatever. I guess it's been 14 years since the supernova. Where have they been? Has they been staging this from the Borg cube? How could they have this big of a intelligence network that's even infiltrated Starfleet? So anyway, can't wait to hear what you guys thought. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Steve. I think there's something we're probably going to learn, that either that the Tal Shiar and potentially this other more sinister version before probably have been around since before the supernova and have just continued, maybe slightly diminished, but When people think that the Romulans are no longer there, they're no longer an issue, it becomes easier to disappear into the shadows even further.
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably what we're going to find. Especially because we do, although saying that the Commodore is aware of them being there, even though she's the head of probably security for Starfleet. And what we're aware of so far, that she's the head of security, or at least that type of intelligence, we believe. So I get the feeling that she's probably aware of them, but not to the level that they're there.
Well, she might even be working for them, or working with them, I suppose, as part of it as well. I think it does come as a massive surprise, Steve, to your point. It's supposed to be really shocking that they would have the audacity to come to Earth and infiltrate Starfleet. Starfleet's supposed to be kind of impenetrable to these kind of organizations. They're fully aware of who they are. So it is a very difficult thing to infiltrate them. So you're right, it is a massive surprise that they're there. But we don't know the extent of them. We don't know whether there's just the one operative on Earth working there, or whether there's multiple people working on Earth. They're beaming in, remember, from probably a spaceship somewhere close in orbit or somewhere else, to make these attacks that they're making on Earth as well. So, they may not be all embedded in Starfleet, but we know of one agent that is.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that Cold War aspect of, the Soviet Union, Russia, Western Europe. So, the idea of an espionage network is feasible for me. And I suppose if this is the Chad Vash, it's not even the Tal Shiar, if they are even more secretive, and it seems as though secretive is every Romulan's middle name, then they're probably, even more embedded. And as well, I think, you get the sense from Raffi, certainly in this episode 3, that, even with the rogue synths and the attacks on Mars, that she feels that absolutely reeked of the Tal Shiar, that there was some Romulan, involvement there, but also that there was some complicity from Starfleet as well, that maybe, again, that there are people within Starfleet with sympathetic leanings towards the Romulan Empire for whatever reason. And again, it feels more of that espionage type of thing from the 50s and 60s in the Cold War.
Exactly. Yeah. Really good feedback. Thanks again for your voicemail, Steve. Love hearing from you in the podcast. Brian Malosh of Talk Through Media sent us some feedback over in our Facebook group about our last podcast. He says, one thing to correct you guys on, Discovery famously used the F-bomb twice in Discovery Season 1, Episode 5, Choose Your Pain, when Tilly and Stamets used it in a scene. And I remember back in 2017 when that show did that, it got a lot of flack for that from many people who watched Discovery. Many people watched it with their kids, because there's kind of a history of people watching The Next Generation as a family. Many of those children who were introduced to Star Trek as kids are now parents and introducing their kids to Star Trek through something like Picard or something like Discovery. I'm really surprised they did it again here because of how controversial it was. It doesn't bother me, says Brian, because my kids only bark, meow, and lick themselves.
You really need to ask your kids to stop licking themselves in public.
Maybe teach them some language as well.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting feedback, because we did all of us watched Discovery and really liked it as well, didn't we? And I must admit I forgot, but I remember Tilly saying the F word in that TV show and going, Tilly can't curse. She's too cute. She's too normal and too cute to curse. Like, that seems amazing that she would do it. But I absolutely remember the scene the minute you said it to me.
Yeah, the same. Actually, as soon as you brought it up, the one thing I think that no one jumped down my throat on this.
All right.
But the more I think about it,
we can actually jump down your throat because you're in the same room as
I know, this is really scary. Usually I have like a screen between us to stop anything.
Distance to protect you. Yeah.
But it's more, if we look at it as, say, films these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is a quote unquote darkening of properties at the moment, gritty, realistic, things like that. As you go in towards a more mature, kind of I'm not talking like an 18s and R-rated, but as you go into 12s and 13s and 16s, those ratings, you are allowed one or two to make it realistic, to make it more. If everyone was shiny and happy and no one swore or no one, not even cursed, but like if there was no blood, like just injuries or like inferred injury, then it becomes off-centered of reality.
Right.
So I think by centering it, they're not going to turn. It's not going to be a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek, which apparently was
that was
at
mooted.
one point, but no longer, because then it would be nothing but cursing. But this is, I think, like 1, 2 here or there.
Yeah.
It just helps ground it a bit more.
And I do understand that some Star Trek fans kind of like that aspect of Star Trek. The idea of sitting down with the kids and watching in the evening and it being quite serious sci-fi, but not grounded in reality and using language and having sex scenes in it and that kind of stuff is something that genuinely appeals to some elements of Star Trek fans. And I understand why there was a big kind of backlash with Discovery saying, this isn't the old Star Trek that you used to. It's still in the same universe, but it's not the Star Trek you used to because they are in adult situations much more than going out and just traveling the galaxy kind of thing. And I think Picard is saying the same thing by using it this way. It's saying we're grounding this more in reality than in science fiction. It did have that wonderful line in episode 2, didn't it? Where Picard sees Dr. Alison Jurati reading a sci-fi novel and goes, sci-fi, I never understood that, which is a great little joke about Star Trek and about Picard, you know. So there is that kind of reference to it. And I like the fact they're kind of making it more grounded, as you say, Chris, for this show, but it does feel that kind of does change the dynamic of what people would have watched it for back in the 80s in Star Trek Next Generation.
I get that. Mm-hmm. Think of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So when they went with Peter Capaldi, it was a bit more, they grittied it up a bit more, just because of the character. Mm-hmm. And now that they've moved towards Jodie Whittaker, they've actually kind of, not reverted is the wrong word, they've evolved to, again, a different version of the Doctor Who, which is a bit more lighthearted again. Yeah. So I think it's about the evolution, not the evolution of the version of the show that they're trying to tell, that the writers are trying to tell, the director is trying to tell, the showrunner is trying to get across. This is a bit more of a gritty, realistic Picard kind of, and this is the Picard for the Star Trek for the slightly older fan. Yeah. And I think there are shows then that probably do another Star Trek. There are more Star Trek shows out there at the moment in development, which probably may lean on more towards of the family friendly, let's all sit down.
Absolutely. And there's still 3 seasons of The Orville.
So good.
I'm not a massive fan.
Oh, I so am.
I've tried it and I've really tried, but yeah, it's not funny enough for me and it's not serious enough for me.
But that's not perfect in between.
No, it's the both things. It's not serious enough, not funny enough. Anyway, back to Brian. He also says the brain defect is a condition that made Picard susceptible to aromatic syndrome, which he had in All Good Things. Now, that future was a possible future, but it did show that he was susceptible to it and a few other things when he went back to the present. So, once again, one of the little things that we had missed, the connection to All Good Things. Thanks very much for that, Brian.
Yep, thanks, Brian.
We also have some feedback from Bill Meeks, who says, I'm really enjoying it. It's fun to see Picard, a character we as an audience trust implicitly, to be so distrusted by those around him because they consider him a crazy old man who made some big mistakes. The show feels a little slow at times, but I think it'll pick up soon. Yep. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I'm right there with you in terms of that, in terms of how we see Picard, and we'll see how it goes about you'll see my view on whether it's slow or not later.
I think the show itself will definitely pick up. I think we're going into episode 3. You've probably seen episode 3 if you're listening to the podcast here. But I think that moment right at the end of this episode is telling you, right now, we're engaging. We've got all that setup out of the way. Off we go into our mission. So I think you're right, probably, Bill, that the show will probably pick up. But thanks so much. It's really good to hear some feedback in from you.
Yeah, great to get some feedback from you, Bill. We also got some feedback through from Bob Phillips. He says, some may call it slow-paced, but I'd like to suggest the word leisurely to describe the Picard series. It is ambling through the vineyards of the story, stopping to examine a vine, pluck off a bug, or just check that the grapes are ripening.
Oh, I love that metaphor.
Very good, yes. This episode entwined what might be a group of Romulans working with other species in a positive and constructive way, Starfleet being infiltrated by a mythical reality, and the embarrassment of an ex-celebrity. The range of Romulan accents is particularly impressive. We've previously been used to all members of a race, now notably described as species, having the same sort of attitudes, often appearances and vocal style. It's far more reasonable to imagine that they have regional variation, like Earth still does, and that even Romulans can be hot. Crazy. Bob finishes with crazy theory alert. What if the Romulan siblings are actually deep undercover Data-style android twins, one of whom has been extensively surgically changed to go undercover in Starfleet? interesting, crazy theory, for sure there, Bob. I'm not too sure now, but certainly the fact that you can round her ears from, pointy Romulan ears, I wonder how she does that.
Extensions.
No, but it lowers them.
That's true.
Because in this episode, we do see her with her Romulan ears.
Yes.
And it's like, I wonder if it's some kind of holographic projection, but I just have this sort of vision of a projector sort of just behind her earlobe, sort of projecting, human ears rather than Romulan ears.
Right.
I like the idea that as well that Picard is, in a sense, leisurely. I think, certainly just the fact that he is, 94, it kind of has to be. Again, not to give too much away of this episode, but he uses his walking stick to deadly effect in this episode.
Yeah.
And I think, I like the fact that you've got the different styles and sort of regional variations within the other species, not just with Starfleet and Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just say, as we did mention this off podcast, I think maybe Star Trek Picard feels slow in comparison to maybe something like The Boys or Watchmen or Good Omens or other shows that we've covered. But having watched now probably about 20 or so episodes of The Next Generation over the last couple of weeks, it's not leisurely or slow in comparison to The Next Generation. The Next Generation was a contemplative show, deliberately paced, where everybody was talking about what was going on and what their plan was going to be and how everybody felt about everything. And you would get moments of action within the episode. And I think it's actually quite equally matched in pace with The Next Generation, despite the fact they don't have ad breaks to break up 15-minute intro bits of an hour-long episode. They don't have that in Star Trek Picard, but I do think it's quite similarly paced, let's say, to The Next Generation. And they had 26 episodes in a season like that. We only have 10 to go with Star Trek Picard. So I think it's interesting seeing that perspective.
Yeah, and we'll get more into it later in this episode. I think it's that it's taken 3 episodes to really get to that engaged moment. Get it?
I get it.
Because I think, but as you said, in other shows, in other properties, usually the max they'll do is 2. Because they're setting the plot. They just write, okay, let's give the hero or the protagonist his journey, point him in the right direction, and off we go.
Yeah.
Usually that's even in the first episode.
Yeah.
So, but this, it's taken 3 episodes.
Yeah.
It's taking its time. It's leisurely about it. I feel they'll need to, to really amp things up on the 4th.
Right. But I think if you could take the 3 episodes separately, episode 1 is Picard gets his mission. Episode 2 is Starfleet tell him to F off. And episode 3 is he gets his crew together, and now it's off we go on the mission. So I know what you mean. And I suppose the one big difference between this and The Next Generation, just to make sure that I'm clear about what I'm saying, in The Next Generation, mostly an episode was self-contained. So while it was slow and deliberate, it was just one mission that they usually completed within the hour, or maybe in a big 2-part episode, which happened maybe once every couple of seasons. Whereas this is one big mission over 10 episodes, kind of spread out a bit more, but the pacing does seem fairly similar to me. That's all.
I mean, I think for me, it's more just that they've probably decided to structure it differently. I mean, a lot of time has gone, and has passed since The Next Generation. So I suppose you just got to catch everyone up, because if it was Riker and Beverly Crusher and so on, and Geordi, all racing off together, but this is a new set of people with sort of interjections of the old TNG crew. And maybe other shows would have started it off with him hurtling in to be engaged by the end of the first episode, but then would have done a number of flashback episodes or whatever. Yeah. So I think maybe it's the structuring of it, possibly, but, I'm happy enough with the pace at this moment in time, for sure. Yeah. So, thanks, Bob. And also thank you for sending in your pub quiz answers as well. We will get Chris prepped to sing the answer on the final episode as well. I think we may have just drop that surprise on him right
Slightly.
here, right now.
I'm just feeling, is it like Star Trekking across the universe? I'll do that.
You might need to read your emails, Chris. I have sent this to you, so you should be prepared. You've got 8 weeks. It's okay. And a little time abroad to learn the lines.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Thanks so much to everybody for the feedback. We really love hearing your thoughts. And as we said, there are some things that we're not going to know about Star Trek Picard. So filling in the blanks for us is really, really helpful. Let's get into episode 3 of Star Trek Picard. The end is the beginning.
Or is the beginning the end?
Maybe.
Ooh, it's a mystery.
For the moment, there's so many mysteries in this show. The episode was written by Michael Chabon and James Duff. Once again, it was directed by Hanelle M. Culpepper as well. So keeping the same kind of team involved all the way through these episodes, always good.
Yeah, again, it keeps that kind of fluidity, the similarity across the style.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. John, do you want to give us the official episode description for this episode of Star Trek Picard?
Sure. Completely unaware of her special nature, Soji continues her work and captures the attention of the Borg Cube Research Project's executive director. After rehashing past events with a reluctant Raffi, Picard seeks others willing to join his search for Bruce Maddox, including pilot and former Starfleet officer Cristóbal Rios. Yes, we get sexy Starfleet captain.
Sexy Starfleet captain, sexy Romulan. There's so much sexiness going on the show this time.
Or you should say it's Starfleet sexiness.
Absolutely.
None of the Starfleet are sexy.
That's true.
all the non-
It's everybody that's
sexy.
left.
Yeah, exactly. So when you leave Starfleet, you get sexy.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
it. Maybe.
And-
Sexy ex-Borg as well, because we got Hugh back this time as well.
That's
so
true.
good.
And even with Rios, he is a man that likes to carry the scar so he can show them off in the bar,
God, that was anyway. Let's get into it.
I want this scar.
Absolutely. Let's get into the
I
episode.
got this one in Romulus. I got this one on Klingon.
He's just been watching The Witcher. That's
John
probably
is
where it
not
is.
giving this up, is he? Let's get on to our prime directive, our main point for the episode, guys.
We must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive.
Who's up first for this time on our prime directive, Chris or John?
I think we should give it to John. I've taken the main points the odd time, I just feel I take them all the time, the big points. I feel I should give it to John.
Why, thank you, sir. My big moment, my prime directive, it's the attack, the Romulan attack by the Death Squad on Chateau Picard. I think, first and foremost, this was a great fight sequence. I love seeing Loris and Chabon fighting on behalf of Picard. Picard almost reduced to a secondary sort of watcher of everything going on, although he does get in a bit later towards the end of the fight. But I thought Loris really kicked some ass here. She was, and I love the moment where she's having the scrap, and she's taking a lot of punches, but she's pushed back into the cabinet, and you see the glass crack of the cabinet where they have the camera. I thought that was really, really nicely done. But also we have that final moment with, Dr. Jurati, coming to the rescue, and realizing that Romulan guns do not have a stun setting. So she has just killed her first, Romulan.
Yeah.
But,
Probably anybody. Yeah. Probably her first ever kill. Isn't it?
But I thought this was a really nice, bit of fighting, here. And of course, some of the, again, a bit like in the old westerns or, in present day films where you've got the gun taped on the underside of a desk.
Cool.
You've got a phaser taped to the underside of the desk in Picard's study. So that was a nice little bit.
Absolutely. I take it that the stuff is kind of, Chabon and Laris went around the house and set it up in case they were ever attacked. I take it that that's kind of what it's supposed to be saying, is that they're security team for Picard, but they also tend the vineyard kind of thing.
Yeah.
I almost subtitled this episode, "You thought you liked Laris before? Wait till you see this one." Because this episode is like, yeah, she was cool and funny in the first couple of episodes. Now she kicks ass too.
Yeah, she was really badass. She had some great moves. And as I say, even Picard comes in with his kind of walking stick that he'd been using, just to sort of knock one of the Romulans. And he gets in on the phaser action as well.
Yep.
I was happy about that.
Yeah.
So because I think in the first episode we had discussed, I know I had literally called out going, yeah, he's an old man. He's 94 in this. He's not going to be in any fights. Like they can't, though no, he can. They give him a gun, and that's what they've done.
Very important that they pointed out though, because, as you say, Dr. Durati comes in and shoots them with the Romulan rifle, but Picard's using a phaser, so that's why the guy's still alive. The Romulan's still alive for them to interrogate is because he did use a phaser with a stun setting on it. So it's important that Picard doesn't kill anybody and slaughter everybody just because we're trying to gritty up the show a bit. So Picard's going around shooting people.
Well, they even call it out. He goes, this has a stun setting.
Exactly.
Romulan disruptors do not have stun settings.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. There was a nice moment just as well before the attack, where you realize he's about to head off on the mission, which I thought was quite nice between him and Loris, where he goes, I tried my best to belong here. It never felt like home, as you kind of, he looks up at the stars twinkling in the universe. And I thought that was kind of quite nice, that reference, even though it's his family ancestral home, he just has never felt as though he's belonged at Chateau Picard, in that sense. His place is up there with the stars. And I thought that was a nice little, moment as well.
Yeah. And it's definitely a reference, I think, to, servicemen coming home. Effectively, he was a naval commander in space for many, many decades. And he's come home. He's been told, now you're a retiree. Now you just need to go and tend, your vineyard and grow as much grapes to make all the wine you need for the rest of your life. I don't know whether he actually sells that wine or whether he just makes it all for himself. Can you imagine, the banks and banks of thousands and thousands of bottles of wine where he's just like, it's Chateau Picard and I am Picard, so I get to drink every bottle.
He is a massive wino, for sure.
Or just occasionally bring it,
Picard.
exactly, or occasionally bring it as a gift to soften the mood in a room, I think.
Yes, exactly. I think another nice bit from this fight as well was just where they were lining up all the guns, because they do take one of the Romulans, kind of hostage, one of the ones that have just been stunned.
Yeah.
And they begin this interrogation, which is really important, with respect to Dahj and Soji. This idea that, we find out that he's from the North Country, like Zhaban as well. So that whole kind of regional thing that we were just talking in the feedback from Bob Phillips. He has that particular line across his forehead.
The kind of ridged forehead.
Yeah, ridge.
Yeah, because Laris doesn't have that, and that was kind of it was one of the first times you'd seen a Romulan that didn't have the ridged forehead. Yes. And he has the ridged forehead. So it's like North and South divide.
Exactly.
About the ridges. Right?
But in this kind of interrogation from Picard, you have this conversation about, these two twins, these two sisters, and that she is the end of all.
The destroyer, yes.
Which is very, very prophetic here. And it's just before, he kind of takes his acid pill, and spits it out at Zhaban, but then just dissolves. Luckily, Zhaban doesn't dissolve. I was wondering why he decided to do it after he'd talked about them, and allowed himself to be interrogated. It felt maybe it was a bit off that, but
I think there was more information that he could have given up, though.
Yeah, I think so. And
I have to say, I think that scene is supposed to clarify what happened in episode 1. It's not like they only just made the scene, but the idea in episode 1 where everybody thought that guy's spitting acid, his acid is blood or whatever, this is much more definitive that he bites into a capsule. Yeah. It does something to his body and he spits out the acid, isn't it? It feels much more defined than that episode 1. So maybe it was just a filmmaking choice to say, if we show it twice and we show it this way, then that scene in episode 1 is clarified a bit more.
Definitely.
I think it's also that they're going to end up constantly having to, when next time they take a Romulan, a Chapas, they're going to go, okay, we have to take your tooth out because you have a cyanide capsule in there.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a trope. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's in every spy film ever.
Absolutely.
The minions or the bad guys have a cyanide capsule in the back crown that they bite into.
Yeah.
The one thing is, this seemed, in my opinion, less potent than the one that was thrown at Dahj.
Yeah.
Because Dahj one, it was hit the disruptor and hit her. With her, it was a bit more like, she was like, she started like overheating, about to explode.
Yeah. It hit her bare skin, didn't it? Yeah. So her face was burning instantly, and then the disruptor exploded, killing her.
Yes.
But Zhaban was pretty quick off the mark to get the thing off. Yeah. Maybe as former Tal Shah, he kind of knows how quickly he's got to react. I think though, the thing, this interrogation bit in Chateau Picard, it just is a really nice connection with, I know, Chris's main point with what's going on the Borg ship, Soji, and with, I think the ex-Borg is a Romulan called Rhonda. But the connection of the interrogation here in Chateau Picard and the questioning that Soji's doing then on the Borg ship with Rhonda, I thought was really nicely done, just to kind of complete the full sort of jigsaw puzzle around it and the picture there.
Yeah.
Or the puzzle that she was doing on the table.
Yes.
Quite literally.
Yes,
Exactly.
quite literally. Yes.
That's your big moment, John?
It is.
Big point. So help me, Rhonda. Chris, do you want to take us on to your big point?
Yes. So let's literally talk about that. It is, my big point is Soji and Rhonda, and actually, that whole bit that's going on that throughout, not just the interrogation, but we'll call it that story path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we are learning more about Soji throughout this episode.
Yeah. She's got skills.
Yeah. So like,
And she seems to have skills that she can call upon immediately. It felt a little bit Matrixy kind of. It's like, now I want to know karate. Click. I now can speak Romulan. I now can speak to everybody. Yeah, I really like that.
one thing I'll call out now, and we can get to it later, but at the very end, when Rhonda is about to shoot everyone,
Yeah.
Soji does the super fast bionic woman run.
Ooh, kinda, yeah.
Because it slows down time slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like or the camera style similar to when Daj was doing her super fast run.
Mm-hmm.
So that will come back.
I like that.
I think that's going to be called out in that basically potentially the ex-Borg handler who was with her, the director, will
Hugh. Yeah.
Hugh, yes. He will call it out, or it will come up on camera because we do know that Narek was watching.
Mm-hmm.
So again, he already knows. Anyway, that will come back to bite. But I want to talk about Soji. I want to talk about what is going on with this whole, the ex-Borg Romulans, because apparently what we're learning is that the reclamation of ex-Borg, XBs, is happening. There is a large number of them living on the ship.
Yep.
They are their own society now. They're being reintegrated to a degree.
Yep.
And they still live on the cube. They were basically when the Borg cube was about to explode or be destroyed, it was cut off from the collective.
Yes.
And it didn't completely explode. So all these Borg are basically cut off from the hive.
Exactly.
They were to be reconnected.
Yeah. There was kind of a pretty brutal description of this type of thing the first time we saw Hugh in The Next Generation. It's very much that the Borg, when they feel that you're no longer of use to them, they'll just completely sever the connection and walk away. It's very much a very clinical way of dealing with with the members of the Borg collective. It's kind of like, well, we could probably salvage it, but that'd be a bit of a waste of time, so we'll just cut you off and walk away. So that's what this kind of group is like. But I think I really like this idea that the Romulans that are in the room are all slightly crazy. They're all slightly off-center. There's something wrong with them after being removed from the collective, because it feels like no other species that was in the collective had this happen to them. So why is it specifically Romulans? It says everybody in that room is a Romulan that has had this happen to them. But is that every Romulan who has become a Borg? Have they all experienced that, or is just some subsection of the Romulans that's experienced it? So that's certainly something we're going to see as the episodes go on. But I just thought it was a really interesting idea that one species can't be removed from the Borg completely. They create their own network after being removed, even though they're no longer Borg. They can still communicate with each other with their own network that they've created. I think that's really interesting.
I think this is where it's going to be interesting, because technically what they're saying is the reason Soji wanted to talk to Rhonda was that she was an anthropologist or historian regarding mythology in Romulan history around this singular collective, this idea of shared consciousness, and all of the XBs who are off-centered, who are slightly weird, or crazy, are all the ex-Romulans who came from the only ship, and the only Romulans ever to be assimilated.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. So this is the only Romulans, and these are the only ones. All of them, and these are the only ones like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we're finding is that potentially there is, crazy theory alert, I think it's going to be something along that the Romulans have some deep connection to the Borg, in deep history. That's what we're going to find out. Like, there's going to be some connection around this collectiveness or collective or connection. Or...
That's interesting, yeah. And that could play into this whole Chad Vash stuff as well, that are against AI and synthetics, possibly, or where that maybe hatred comes from. I think it'll be interesting as well, speaking of that kind of the ex-Borg sort of creating their own network, which fascinates Soji. It'll be interesting when, or if, Picard gets on the Borg ship as well, to see if his former Locutus of Borg days come back to affect him. So that could be quite good. And then you have that whole kind of tense standoff with Rhonda. I thought she reminded me the actress that played Rhonda almost like Jessica Lange, actually. I thought she was excellent. Just the way she was like, which one are you? The one who lives or the one who dies? The sister who lives or dies? And you're the destroyer. I've met you before, and it's like, oh, this is all getting really intriguing here. Has Soji met her before? Is this synthetic something Borg related even? Probably not. It probably is Data and Maddox kind of related, but you're just like going, what does she mean by that? I've met you before on her former Romulan ship just before they were captured, I think. It's just really fascinating, and I kind of just want to see more.
And in my head, all I was thinking was either she's met Daj before and not Soji, or she's met another duplicate maybe, or somebody else that is like the two of them. They say they're made in pairs, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's only two of them. It could mean there's 4 or 8 or 10 or multiples of 2.
Exactly.
You guys can fill it first.
I made the joke about, I think, one of the first episode, literally the first episode, where there'll be a point where they'll open a door and there's just an army of Sojis and Dajas, just like a room full of them, all of them like identical.
And do you think Issa Briones, the actress who plays them, do you think she gets paid for each appearance of her face on the show?
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Residuals, literally.
Exactly, like the actor that played F8 in episode 2. There was 20 of him on screen. Does he get an extra percentage because so many of them appear on screen?
Yeah, but Rhonda gives her a name as well. She goes, "You are," and I'm probably not pronouncing this correctly at all.
It's not up to scratch. I'm sorry. Come on.
No, or is it a Borg name for this type of person, of Soji? She says, "You are the Sai Schnib," or something like that. And that's probably not. No, it probably isn't. But because we were watching this on the screeners, then there were no subtitles. So only when episode 3 is out will I be able to actually see how to spell this. But she was given a name here, not Soji, at least.
I get the feeling it's going to be like, remember the film Dune, where it was like Paul Atreides was called something.
Yeah.
He had the historic name, he had his real name, and then he had the name he takes, and it was like the mythology name is this thing, you're the destroyer, the creator, it's gonna be something along those lines.
Right.
One thing I do want to kind of revert back to very quickly, with Soji. And because we could talk about the XBs, and I think we'll actually talk a bit more about them later. But with Soji, again, we're getting this feeling that you made the joke about her being a bit like Neo from The Matrix. Oh, now I know this. Yeah. I don't think that she even cops that.
No,
because we see her talk to her mother, quote unquote, again, and the mother, I'm pretty sure the mother's not real.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a program, and that's her download or upload moment because it shuts her down, puts her to sleep.
Yeah.
But it was very much like a...
It's what mothers do.
Yeah,
they kind of make you sleep. Yeah.
You've had that phone call with your mom.
Yeah,
it's like, just get off the phone. Yeah.
But it did seem
not my mom. You guys have had the phone call with your mom.
No, not with my mom.
No, joke.
Sorry, Mrs. O'Neill. I swear he didn't say anything.
I've never fallen asleep on the phone. I know what you mean. Like, there is that moment where she's saying even, I didn't know anything about the Romulans. I didn't know about the fact that this was the last ever ship assimilated. I didn't know Romulan before walking into that room. If you told me 10 minutes ago that I was suddenly going to be able to speak all this language and I'm going to be able to understand everything that was happening there, I wouldn't understand why. It's reasonably obvious, but we might as well call it out. She doesn't know that she's synthetic, and that's coming across in here. She doesn't know that she's been built and has a computer inside her brain that's telling her what she needs to be told in whatever situation that she's in. And just in that phone call to the mother, this time seeing the phone call, you can tell the face is actually computer generated. It's not the usual Star Trek thing of a hologram of a human being projected. It is a CGI created face in this scene.
Yeah.
So that's on purpose. That is, she sees it and probably feels like she's seeing a human face, but it is a computer, I think. So I think you're right, Chris. There is no actual mother that looks like this. It's been embedded, and it is, and she does have her keywords to turn her into whatever she needs to know for the following day. But it's a really interesting scene. I love those moments with Soji on the
Sleeper
board.
Awakens.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so that kind of rounds up my points on Soji. I know we'll discuss more. There is a lot more to talk. But Derek, what's your prime directive?
I really like the flashback in this episode. Jean-Luc Picard's last desperate solution to continue the Romulan evacuation. I just really like seeing it on screen because we've speculated about what happened, and we saw the backstory in some of the comic books. We saw some things that were going on in Romulan space. We've heard little bits of dialogue here and there, but I really liked seeing Raffi and Jean-Luc together at the beginning of this episode, telling us what happened, effectively. He was trying to do exactly what Captain Jean-Luc Picard always used to do, which is he's trying to do everything to save lives, and Starfleet have turned on him. Starfleet are saying, absolutely not. And not only that, your plan's not workable. You can't do this. We're pulling out of space. We're getting rid of synthetics. All of the things that were massively important in Jean-Luc Picard's career have all come crashing down. And he says, accept my resignation or allow me to go on this mission. And they go, we'll accept your resignation.
Yeah, it was that great moment where Raffi says, there must be some wild, desperate solution, this last gasp attempt. And he's kind of, I did that. It was, look, if you don't allow this or don't do this, I'll resign. And instead they took the resignation. That was this desperate, wild solution that he didn't think they would ever accept. And again, I'm really liking the fact that this, I suppose the legend of Picard, and again, he's being told no, I think is really, really good. And I must say, I love that. I love these flashbacks going back to 14 years ago. I suspect it won't happen on every episode, but just getting that context of this attack on Mars, and certainly then this relationship of Raffi and Jean-Luc Picard, because I think it links really nicely to the Vasquez Rocks, where Raffi's little kind of caravan is as well, and some of the differences or different choices that Jean-Luc makes in having those difficult conversations with Raffi. So I really like this, but we do hear that Raffi believes it sniffs, it smells, it reeks of Tal Shiar in terms of the attack on Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the final part really of this moment. Picard's gone in to do this. Raffi thinks that he should absolutely have had this mission sanctioned and to go and save the Romulans. I like the fact that it ends off costing Raffi her job as well. That's the division between the two of them, effectively. He handed in or said he was going to retire if they didn't allow him to do the mission. So he loses his job, and because of that, she is also has her commission taken away as well. I think that's a really interesting piece. But she does mention, and it's just a quick line of dialogue there. We're going to talk about the other one, I think, in a second as well, John. But she mentions there that she feels that the plot on Mars was orchestrated by the Romulans, by the Tal Shiar. So that's a little bit more confirmation for some of the theories that we've had. So there has been some idea that the Romulans might have been involved all the way back to 14 years ago, effectively.
Okay, this is my ignorance, and potentially some of our listeners will be able to help us. Was Raffi in this before? Was she in TNG? For me, this is like, if this had been a Counselor Troy, or someone from TNG that we actually knew, because they're showing that there's this, like, there is this level of bond.
Absolutely.
In like that she'll follow him into the ends of the earth, blah blah blah. Maybe it was in one of his. It's a character I'm not aware of. It's a character I'm kind of like, okay, I get what you're doing. I know, I need a bit more background depth, and I think we will get that potentially in the future.
Definitely.
But I was just wondering, was there a character, like, is she just like a one-off character that was shown on the Enterprise back in the original days, or was she in, not Voyager, but Deep Space Nine or something?
No, the first appearance of Raffi Busker, the character, is in the comic book prequel comics, the Star Trek Picard Countdown comics that we were talking about. There's not a huge amount of her in there. There's not a huge amount of extra information that you have about her. What we do know from the comic books is that she's the foremost authority in Starfleet on Romulans, which is why she works with Picard. And really the reason why the two of them are working together is because they're trying to do this evacuation attempt for all the Romulan planets, so he needs the best person involved. They had worked together before the comic books, according to what's in the comics, but we've never seen any actress portray the character before. So this is her first appearance in the show, was last episode, and that's the first time we'd ever seen her on TV before, and the comic books were a little bit earlier, but yeah.
And complete aside, I'm just, is she going to be the love interest?
No.
No, okay.
I would say no. I think it's much more of a, once Riker went off and became a captain of another ship, he needed a first officer. This became his next first officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm still trying to figure out, are they even going to do a love interest or type of thing in this show? And if it is, then the only person I can think of is Raffi.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know if they'll get this. I don't know. I don't think, but the history that we've already learned, and the 14 years, and now she's addicted to snakeskin, and everything. I'm like,
yeah, I would be pulling the same face if there was a love interest with Picard. He's 94. Now, that's not to say that they can't, get down and so on, but
get down,
yeah,
get down.
I don't know whether I want one episode where there's some kind of
won't they?
OAP extravaganza.
Hey, if he can take on Romulans, I'm sure
that
he
is
can take
true.
on
That's
other
true.
things.
Picard's love interest is seeking out new life and new civilizations and boldly going where other men have gone before. That definitely came across the wrong way. I'm boldly going where no man has gone before. So,
well, if you're seeking out new life forms, that's probably why.
Well, exactly. There could be a love interest here, but let's hope not.
Yeah, I think if they go down that route, potentially it may be wrong, but I think it would be better to be as a mentor-mentee relationship. Yeah. But we'll see. I just get the hint.
Exactly. It would feel like walking in on my parents.
True.
I can't allow that to change my view of Jean-Luc Picard or Patrick Stewart for that matter.
You are so ageist.
I know, I'm sorry.
Everybody deserves
However
love.
Vibrant he is,
That's
so
right.
yes.
Everybody
exactly.
deserves love. It is interesting since there's so much stuff going on about people not wanting to live on and work on after the age of 65 at the moment. You hear this in every country at the moment, that's going to extend. Unfortunately, in the 24th century, people are living on and working until 92 years old.
Exactly.
What was it? I guess 80 years old is when he hands in his notice and expects them to keep him on board. So we're going to be working a lot longer in the future.
Ooh, we're living a lot longer. Anyway, moving on, gentlemen. I think it's about time we move on to our Omega Directive.
Implement the Omega Directive immediately.
So, John, I think you're up first. What is your Omega point?
Yeah, I think this links to Derek's last point, actually. First off, I loved Patrick Stewart and Michelle Hurd here, Raffi and Jean-Luc Picard, and just their whole kind of conversation. I thought Michelle Hurd was absolutely fantastic here, in the interchange. That kind of, that feeling of being betrayed, the betrayal of hurt that she had was really, really good. She talks about that, she felt humiliated in going into the Commander-in-Chief, the CNC, after Picard had come, from seeing them. It was kind of following the main act. It felt like everything she had done to prepare him, and he went in and he tried to use his personality. I think as Bob Phillips said in the feedback, this idea of an ex-celebrity no longer having that celebrity pull, and it just didn't work. And I thought her sense of hurt and betrayal, and the line where she goes, I've been sliding into humiliation and rage over the last 14 years since that happened. Yeah. And I think, this idea that, she talks about Picard's grand chateau, the vineyards, the heirlooms, the big furniture, and she goes, I would show you around my small caravan, but I would just feel humiliated again. And to me, it's a great follow-on from the dressing down that Admiral Clancy gave to Picard in the last episode, in episode 2. He's having to eat some humble pie, and I think here is a heavy dose of humble pie from Raffi to Jean-Luc. And even just that moment where, she goes, but you never visited.
Yeah.
But you're coming here now wanting a pilot and a ship and Romulan expertise. Yeah. And,
why didn't you even call?
And you look at Picard in a different light, and I just found that really interesting, the emotional exchange and engagement between the two. Mm-hmm. And I think you pointed out, Derek, as well, the difference from 14 years ago is, as she goes in to see the CNC after the attack on Mars, he shouts Raffi, but stays seated on the chair. He doesn't go after her. Whereas here, as she kind of is saying, I'm not going to go down another rabbit hole with you, and leaves the caravan, to go off to her own thoughts effectively. He shouts at Raffi, and then goes after her to try and persuade her. And I thought this was really, really nice. And even that follow-up exchange, later on, it is just really nice that she won't be going with him, or so we think at this moment in time. But
or did we?
Yeah, but she, she doesn't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But I'll get you a pilot. And then you have that great moment later on where she is trawling through all this stuff, and Jean-Luc calls her up, sends all the data on Bruce Maddox. And goes like, make it so, and then just hangs up. And she's like, but she's intrigued because of the little attractant that he kind of left, right at the end of episode 2, that there are Romulans operating deep within Starfleet on Earth. So I loved this. I thought Michelle Hurd was absolutely great, here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love the character of Raffi. In terms of the Picard dressing down and stuff, I think this is great. I thought this was nice to see him eat the humble pie. Mm-hmm. The disagreement I had was, as you just mentioned, he then calls Raffi after doing this very much humble pie, like basically accepting and apologizing to her, going, yes, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have, following her, which was great, because that scene where he was out of breath.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, old man here, remember? I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when he then calls her, he then slips directly back into Picard, Captain Picard, where he's like, yeah, here's all the stuff, go do it.
But that's what I thought was the great gag, isn't it? It's like, he calls her up going, I know you're researching all this information. And she goes, well, maybe. No, I'm not. And he's like, here's all the information. Now you can look into all the files and, carry on, which is absolutely what he would say to any member of his crew. He knows she's back. Like, he knows once he's apologized and once he's done everything for her, he knows that he's kind of got her back on his side, but he knows he's still going to have to eat a bit more humble pie in the future.
He's got to work at it. And I think that's it. I think obviously you don't get to be Admiral in Starfleet. Like, he is a persuasive character. Yeah. He is, magnetic. He is charismatic. And so he's still trying to convince her. And I suppose as well, being an admiral, you need to know your crew, you need to know your officers, and he knows her as well. He knows that it's why he lets slip the Romulans operating deep undercover in Starfleet, because he knows that will engage her in that sense. Yeah. So, I thought it was really, nicely done. And I think even that second attempt by Picard, to try and get her to follow him down the rabbit hole, as she says, at least at that stage, it's no.
Yeah.
I think that's the great thing about how Michelle Hurd, you see that she's torn. She does want to go. She does want to help him, but she feels utterly hurt and betrayed by Picard as to how it was left 14 years ago, and the fact that there's effectively no contact with her since, yet she sees him on the TV with that interview. She knows
massive house.
Yeah, she knows his life, and it's a really tough scene to watch for seeing Picard, who you also hold up.
Yeah.
That's not on, Jean-Luc. You didn't do well there, Jean-Luc. And I like that. I like that. It doesn't undermine him. It's just saying he has his flaws.
But I do think it's also kind of hurts Star Trek fans a little bit. It hurt me a little bit because one of the things that you always love about Picard and by the end of The Next Generation is those characters became a family aboard the ship. It was one of the kind of differences, I suppose, the big difference between the old first series Star Trek and The Next Generation is that by the end of the show, they had all gone to each other's weddings. They'd all knew each other's kids kind of thing. They were all family. And to have this character that we didn't know much about, as you mentioned, Chris, she's not around in The Next Generation or anything like that, but it's established that they had a very close relationship as Captain and Number One, or as Admiral and Number One. And what it's saying here is she didn't become a member of the family Picard. She didn't get the contact from him after she left Starfleet and he left Starfleet. So that almost hurts because you kind of feel like Captain Picard would always keep in contact with all the people he worked with and he'd always be interested in their lives and always be interested in what they're doing. And she's telling him, why didn't you once come and contact me? I was hurting. I was in a really bad way and not once did you come and ask me, was I okay? And that feels like, oh, that's not what I thought Captain Picard would be like after the end of Next Generation. And I just think it's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to show you that he is a bit arrogant in the idea that of who he is and his celebrity. So
he drove her to drugs. Snakeskin.
Well, yeah.
That's going to come back. That's going to come back at some point in the series.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, we're wondering why she's off to this planet. She's not actually going to be on board the ship helping out Picard. She's actually catching a lift with him going to a planet that, with the quick reference in the show, it looks like a gambling planet, possibly gambling debts, possibly problems
free
there for her. Free cloud, yeah. So possibly there's some stuff, some serious stuff that's gone on in her life that we'll find out in the next couple of episodes.
I'm getting the vision of Cloud City and Bespin, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump in very quickly. Just a quick point from my Omega directive. Narek and Narissa, or previously Lieutenant Risso. She was called Narissa, called out in episode 2,
right
towards the end, but now she is 100% Romulan. It's confirmed.
Yeah.
It was a surgery. We see her live. She's now on the Borg cube.
Exactly. So she sent her advance hologram to talk to him last time, and this time she was on the ship getting there, basically.
Yeah. So now she is there. So Narek and Narissa, they are siblings. They are Tal Shiar. They are Shat Vash. I'm pretty sure they are Shat Vash. And these are going to be the two to watch.
Absolutely.
I think Narek will have a redemption at some point in this.
Maybe.
He will be the bad guy turned good towards the end.
Okay.
She will be the bad girl, bad woman that stays bad.
Interesting, yeah.
It's Narek's actually in love with Soji. Will basically turn on the Shat Vash to basically be with her. And Narissa basically is the antagonist.
I didn't get any of that, but I understand why you might think that. Yes. I didn't think that was what was going to happen, especially when he turns around to Soji and says, I think I'm falling in love with you. I absolutely think that's another tactic of Narek to get the information out of her. I don't think there's any feeling on his side. I loved that conversation in episode 2, after we see the two of them waking up beside each other. I love that conversation where she's going, is this supposed to be a secret or is it okay? And he's like, the former. He's kind of very straight down the line with her. Don't tell anybody we have a relationship because basically I'm trying to get information out of you and that's it.
It's a honeypot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How did we get through the whole of episode 2 without mentioning that the character of Lieutenant Rizzo, who is now Narissa, is played by Peyton List from Gotham, John?
Yes, exactly.
We covered Gotham for 5 years. She was the third Poison Ivy on Gotham, got the character for the last 2 seasons of the show and did a great job on there. It's very difficult coming in to a role that's been played by 2 other actresses.
Absolutely.
And taking it over. And she played a great character of Poison Ivy on there. I really like her in this, though. I really like that you can tell the machinations that are going on in her mind as she's niggling at her younger brother, effectively going, you need to do this or else I'm probably going to kill you.
Exactly.
That's very much
and she makes the point, make sure you don't fall in love with her.
I get the feeling that's happened before or something. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Like that she had to kill his previous wife, woman, girlfriend, whatever.
Right.
And it's certainly going both ways as well, because I do like it when Narak leans in and he goes, "Your mistake," in respect to the death of Darj as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're siblings, but I suspect they're competitive.
Yeah.
I think so. I think so too.
I'm just, again, also, this is the only Chatfash that we know of so far. Like, we don't even know that they're Chatfash, by the way.
True. Yeah.
We just know that they are Tal Shiar to a degree, or we assume.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like, there's webs within webs within webs. It's not going to be that fun deciphering, trying to figure out what it is.
Absolutely.
But I think these two characters are going to be ones to watch, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about them.
Exactly. Great fun, isn't it? It's kind of as we said, it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes Picard is traveling the universe. It's kind of cool. I really like that. My Omega Directive, my point in here, I just wanted to mention it because we have already kind of talked about it, but the return of Hugh.
Huey.
I love that you think that that's what he was called at any point. It was probably because you were watching it when you were about 10 years old. So he was called Huey to you. Nobody ever called him Huey.
Well, he could have been part of the boys.
Yeah, he's still Huey.
Wee Huey.
Yeah.
But this is another kind of idea, I suppose, in the show, that things aren't necessarily going as well for characters that you would have expected to go well. The idea is of the Borg really that developed over the Next Generation was that they have assimilated multiple cultures into themselves, taking pieces of cultures, taking people from various species and put them into the Borg collective. And the idea throughout the show was occasionally you would be able to save a member of the Borg, bring them back to themselves, and eventually everything would be rosy for them, kind of thing. That was explored much more over on Star Trek Voyager with 7 of 9, another Borg that was reclaimed from the collective. But you see Hugh, a character that was released from the collective earlier on Next Generation. This character is effectively saying that from that point onwards, when he was released, nobody actually helps him out. Everybody looks at him as if he is still a member of the Borg. He's looked at as if he's still a member of the group that killed hundreds and hundreds of Starfleet officers and destroyed multiple nations. He's not allowed to kind of go back to being a regular human, which he was before he became Borg. So I really like that kind of position that they've put the character in. It shows some development. It's not like he's living out in the farm with the wife and kids. He says, really, even though he's no longer Borg, he can't really just assimilate back into normal life, which I just think is a nice touch on the character.
Yeah, the XBs are becoming a thing unto themselves. And we also get the hints that they have formed a government of their own, that they're selling the Borg cube to the Romulans, that they're trading technology or reclaimed technology.
Yeah.
They've made this deal with the Romulan agency, or not agency, scientific type of thing, to bring other scientific agencies in. So we see some Vulcans, we see some humans, i.e. Soji. So yeah, it looks like the XBs are unto themselves now becoming a species. Of many different species.
That's probably a very scary thing if they're selling the most advanced technology in the universe to the highest bidder, and one of those highest bidders is the Federation's greatest enemy, the Romulans, you know?
Yeah.
Probably not going to be a good idea.
Like, I was surprised seeing Huey in the show at this moment, as this executive kind of director of the reclamation site, because it is a Romulan reclamation site. That's how it's described.
Yeah.
And so, is he being forced? So initially I was thinking, is he being forced to work for them? Like he's been captured because he is ex-Borg? But then when he said executive director, I was like, so he is kind of working for them.
Yeah.
But then I like the fact that, as you say, that it's kind of been pretty bad since he had broken away from the collective. And I like the fact that he just calls it out that, treated either as a commodity or as a threat.
Yeah.
And so maybe I wonder if there's some resentment towards the Federation for just leaving him, and so that's why he's here with the Romulans. Nothing like that came out really explicitly to me in the episode, or maybe I just didn't sort of take that in, or I missed it. But I'm suspecting then if or when he does meet and see Picard, it may not necessarily be a happy ever after ending.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick remembrance that just jogged my memory. Narek, when Soji is joking with Narek about if he wants to come with her to see the Borg and to see what she does, he'd have to get permission from the director.
That's right.
That would have been Hugh.
Yes.
And he goes, well, that's not a problem. Yeah. And I went, oh, because he's secretly the director.
Mm-hmm.
No, more than likely now he's probably he has a way with, where he has the ear of Hugh.
Maybe.
Hugh has to probably report to Narek at some degree.
Right.
He's the director.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. There's definitely some stuff that needs to be uncovered there as we go on in future and see what the actual position of Narek is on board the ship, because it's kind of pointed out a couple of times, like, you don't just sit around and do nothing, obviously, on this ship. This isn't like a holiday destination for him. He's doing something, and he's there for a reason, and it's not just to get the information out of Soji. So we'll see what it might be.
Yeah. So I think that moves us on to our final points for this episode.
Make it so, number one.
Derek, do you want to take us off?
Yeah, I'll go first with the final point for the episode. Just a small moment that I want to talk about really is just the introduction of the new Captain Rios, shirtless Captain Rios.
Yeah, sexy Captain Rios.
And his hologram.
Hola.
Yeah, it's something kind of important in the history, I suppose, of Star Trek, is having emergency holograms. There was a character who was on Voyager who was the emergency medical hologram, who was the only doctor they had available to them for that entire series, effectively. So that he became his own character, very much the Data of that series.
Yes.
Someone that was trying to self-realize, someone that's only supposed to be turned on for 10 or 15 minutes, but developed his own personality, effectively. And what we see here with the emergency medical hologram and the Irish, for some reason, emergency navigational hologram, they've both got personalities. They've both got quite intense personalities. So you feel like Captain Rios probably turns them on for very long periods, and maybe they're his only crewmates. Someone to run navigation, someone to take care of any kind of medical emergencies, and then him on his own. So I like what they told you about the state of Captain Rios's mind, or former Captain Rios, I suppose. He seems like he's someone that was in Starfleet. They're saying his former ship was completely scrubbed from Starfleet records. He mentions his former commander died right in front of him with his brains spread across the wall. So what is it that happened to Rios? Why was his captain killed in front of his face? And why was it scrubbed from Starfleet records? All great, interesting questions. But also, why is he surrounding himself with emergency holograms instead of actual people? Kind of cool.
I got the feeling of, do you remember the film Multiplicity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be something like that. I think we're going to end up, there's going to be more than just the EMH and the ENH.
Yeah.
There's going to be
the emergency chef in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. The emergency chef hologram and the emergency toilet cleaner hologram. No, I think we're going to get other ones.
Maybe.
Each with this kind of very unique, strong personality, different versions of Rios.
Yeah.
I think it's going to either have been an attack they went deep space undercover against the Romulan or the Borg.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those two.
Absolutely.
So when Rios meets the Romulans or the Borg in that part, he'll have a big PTSD moment.
Maybe.
Kind of something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, it's a reasonably small ship, isn't it? This new ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do mention the name of the ship that he was second in command aboard that's been scrubbed from the Starfleet records. We tried catching whether the other ship was named, this ship that Picard's on, because I think it's going to be pretty important to know the name of the ship, at least.
Yeah,
I don't. Enterprise for all 7 seasons.
Exactly. I don't think it was, but his previous ship was a heavy cruiser, the Even Magit or something like that.
Right. We will know more when we have subtitles.
Definitely. I like the fact, again, maybe another bit of bitterness towards Starfleet here from Rios. But I like it when Jean-Luc goes, I can recognize that you're Starfleet to the core. I can smell it off you. I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
And certainly, yes, I don't know whether chucking a glass of alcohol onto your wound is necessarily the best way to disinfect it. But nonetheless.
It's always done. Another
I know it
show.
is, yeah.
Just one little touch that I like before we move on from this point. I love that moment where you see him, Captain Rios, you see him being tended to, and Picard walks aboard this brand new ship, looks at the captain's chair and walks off to sit in a navigation chair at the front. I love that he just kind of swerves away from the captain's chair. It's a lovely little touch that I didn't notice the first time I watched. I just watched the conversation between the two of them, but the second time you can really see him eyeing up the captain's chair and just moving past it to sit in a different position. I thought it was kind of a cool little touch.
Until the end.
Until the end, yes. He's off. Well, he's standing at the end, but he's probably going to be sitting
off center. I'm going to jump in very quickly then. So towards the end, so we've been introduced to Captain Rios. We meet his crew of holograms. We basically end up with Picard and his crew, this ragtag group of kind of ex-Starfleeters that are going to be together and are going to form the crew of Picard. There's two notable exceptions on this. For me, why isn't Laris and Chabon part of this? Because they really showed their military worth in Chateau Picard, and why they need to be there because of their knowledge of the Romulans and everything, and their understanding. They have a discussion about it, about going. There's no decision really made because Laris does kind of go, well, you're being stupid going, even thinking about going. And Zabann's like, no, we need to be there.
Right.
And then the attack happens.
Yep.
And then it's just like, nope, I was fully expecting like Picard to basically beam up and then already be on the ship.
Yeah.
Or
I thought all four of them were beaming up at that moment. Yeah.
I agree.
I think leaving Laris behind, she's definitely one of my favorite characters on the show so far. Unfortunately, maybe they're just going to have to call into her. There is a kind of a drop line, but it's not enough to explain why they're there. You hear Chabon just before he's about to kill the Romulan that they're interrogating. You hear him say, effectively, we need to kill this guy because there's more on the way. So potentially they're there to make sure that poor little doggy number one, isn't left alone to chat at Picard. So they're security for number one, maybe. But it needed a little bit more of that line to explain, this is his land, this is his property, somebody needs to tend it and somebody needs to take care of it. But you don't leave two security officers of this kind of caliber behind.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm with you because I really wish they had gone along on this trip, and I'm hoping that maybe they will come later on.
I think it's a missed opportunity if they don't, if they're kind of they're dropped in, called in, like if they're the Bosley or the kind of the actual Charlies of Picard's Angels,
right?
That we kind of just get them over on speaker when we need some exposition about the Chat Vash or the Romulans, etc.
Yeah.
If that is the case, they have to come back for season 2.
Yeah,
they have to be pulled back in because, as you said, with 2 episodes out airing as we record this, people love these 2 characters.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if maybe the writers or the early screeners just didn't come across or whatever, but I feel this is a massive miss if they are not part of this group.
Yeah, and just to round out the group, so to speak, then Raffi has turned up here to join them, but she is only going to go as far as Free Cloud. But also we get Dr. Jurati as well. And there's a little shadow of distrust hanging over her because we do see her meet with Commodore O, the Vulcan, the Commodore Vulcan from episode 2, who also was with Lieutenant Rizzo.
Yeah, and a massively creepy entrance from Commander O.
Yes, exactly.
Staring.
Absolutely. Like Dr. Jurati is listening to a classical piece. I don't know how long into that piece it is, but some can be hours long. Like, was Commodore O standing over her shoulder just waiting for her to finish like an hour-long piece on her headphones? Oh, I'll be over here until she turns around.
Just waiting. She never does, and she's just like...
But that's the thing. She doesn't even do that. She doesn't even cough to say, I'm here. She could have literally been standing there for hours.
Exactly.
Look over your shoulder. Come on.
I mean, I can see why Dr. Jurati is there and why Picard would want her, and maybe she's done enough to convince him, but yes, again... Trust no one, as Mulder always used to say in the X-Files.
Because I know we say that there was an assist from Jurati to come in behind the Romulan and kill the final Romulan who was about to kill them, but the timing's impeccable.
Yep.
And after only just meeting with Commodore O, you're kind of going, maybe throwing a little shade on that character that could be the Tilly of this series. She could be the really happy, excitable one that's out in space, finally realizing her life. But she could also be the hidden problem on the mission. So,
Yeah.
from a writing standpoint, I will say maybe Laris and Chabon aren't aboard this ship because we've already been introduced to them. We already know them. We already like those characters. We're now being introduced to 3 more characters that we need to get more detail out of, including Dr. Jurati. We know only a very small amount about her. We know almost nothing about Raffi, and we need to build that relationship. And we have this brand new captain, Captain Rios, who's only just introduced in this episode. So maybe they just felt having 5 brand new characters aboard the ship along with Picard might have been too much to kind of keep the balance of the show. So maybe they had to take some people out of the mix to just for a couple of episodes, maybe.
Well, we've also got one notable exception so far for this whole, and we're 3 episodes in, which is we do know that Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9, is in the show.
Yeah.
And is a big part of the show. So we have to assume she will be introduced in the next episode.
Yeah.
And will form part of this crew.
Or sometime in the future and is up against this crew or up against Starfleet.
Yeah.
You know, I'm wondering whether she's just on the side of Hugh and it's something in the interactions between Hugh and 7 of 9 are going to be quite interesting, I think. 2 people removed from the Borg Collective maybe had different experiences over time or maybe had the same experiences, they're both on the same side. So it'll be interesting to see how she plays in the series. Yeah. But it will also be interesting if she's in 7 of 10, if she arrives in episode 7 of the 10 episodes of the season. Anyway, that's just a terribly bad joke. John, do you want to give us your final number 1 moment of this episode?
Yes, my number 1 moment, and it is a small moment, is one word: engage. I have to say, yes, that was just great, having Jean-Luc Picard say the word as they blast off into space from the orbit of Earth. Loved it. It was, again, you can see why Patrick Stewart wanted the first 3 episodes to be done at the premiere, like was done in London that you attended, Derek, but it was done in LA.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that being the final moment of those 3 episodes where it's like engage, and it's just like, yep. Yeah. Just so good.
Yeah, that is literally the only reason I think, like, why screeners only up to this were given to episode 3, because it is such a closing moment.
Yeah, it's such an iconic moment because there's a bit of a joy as well in Picard's face when he's delivering that. You know, it's for everybody. You see Dr. Jurati even smile at it. Why would she know that the word engage is important to Star Trek fans? You know, why would she react that way? But it's such a powerful moment that you have this character, Patrick Stewart, on board the bridge of a new vessel, saying the word engage, going into that moment. Like we've been to conventions where we've seen episodes of TV shows with a room full of fans. I can only imagine what the reaction was in LA to this particular.
It must
moment.
have been mental, just joy, tears.
Yeah, and the other big part of this is they're actually now getting to space.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going into the star part of the Trek.
Yes, exactly.
Not Earth Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's so weird that it's taken this long. I know it's just a strange thing. It's just so strange that it's taken 3 episodes.
I think so, but I think, like I said in the first episode, I have enjoyed seeing a bit of Starfleet Federation Earth, to be honest. It's been really good. But of course, we always knew there was going to be the space moment. And so, it's come. And, looking forward to episode 4.
Excellent. So, with that, I think it's time for something else.
Isn't there something else you have to do?
Any other points, Easter eggs, or comic connections that you noticed? Derek, you're up first.
I think we mentioned most of the stuff that I had noted throughout the episode here. Just wanted to mention the ironically titled book that Captain Rios is reading is called The Tragic Sense of Life by Miguel de Unamuno. Apparently, this is one of the most famous books that's ever been written by a Spanish-speaking author. But it kind of does speak to where Captain Rios is. What I'd be intrigued in, he's surrounded himself by emergency holograms, all with his own face in this show. And what I'd be intrigued in is maybe as he gets better, or as people kind of point out how weird it is that you have a crew looking exactly like you, maybe you need to change their faces to some of the default settings. We might get a Robert Picardo appearance from the doctor, the emergency medical hologram, as he cycles through some of the options available that don't look like him. I'm wondering if part of his psychological issue is kind of being shown here as him having some problems in his tragic life and surrounding himself with holograms that look exactly like himself. And someone may point out in the future, that's probably not a good idea. And maybe that'll lead to another Easter egg in future. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
I've just got one, actually, and it's just something I noticed in the opening credits, because I went back to look at the Bruce Maddox episode from The Next Generation, were
Measure of a Man.
The Measure of a Man, yes, were some of the objects that Data is looking to take with him that have a sentimental value is this kind of hologram crystal that has Tasha Yar being projected from it. And that is also in the opening sequence, this kind of holographic crystal. It's kind of like the Crystal Maze dodecahedron final boss level in the Crystal Maze quiz, which for those of you who are not from UK or Ireland was a quiz show which is still running today. And
in the US now as well.
Yeah, it was great fun. But yeah, it's that kind of shape.
Yeah.
And
I kind of had it in my head as like a holographic memory crystal. It's
that kind
like
of thing.
It's like a specific 3D photograph that he used to hold of Tasha Yar. So interesting that appears in the opening of the credits of the episode.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Once again, I don't know what the Easter eggs are, but I know there are plenty of Easter eggs in the Borg part of the part of this episode.
Yeah.
So the Romulans being there. I know the tarot card type puzzle game that she's playing. I'm pretty sure I've seen that before.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know if it was explained, but I'm pretty sure we've seen something like that before.
I know.
It's just ringing a bell.
We'll get it.
So hopefully one of our fellow listeners can come back and tell us where. But again, also the Borg, because there's so many people, there's so many different species, it's just going to be, again, I know there's Easter eggs there, I just couldn't find them.
What I did like, and I think we should call it out here, it's more to do with the makeup design for the show. Just the appearance of Hugh, as a former Borg with all of his pieces taken off his face. I have to say, if you put it side by side with an image of the character back from The Next Generation, the positioning of all of the pieces on his face to replace what were implants from the Borg is so perfect. Like, they really have done a great job of putting...
it's fascinating.
His eye was replaced as a Borg, and when they've removed this piece, they've given him the fake eye, so one eye is blue and one eye is natural. Just those kind of little touches. It's a fairly simple thing, but you have to give out some kind of praise for the work that they've done to make sure this all kind of lines up in the universe, which is great.
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah. Let's go to some quick final thoughts on the episode. John, overall, what did you think of Star Trek Picard episode 3?
I really liked it. I would give it 4 Romulan acid baths out of 5, or face peels, shall we say. I just really liked, Raffi and Picard in this. I loved the 14 years ago linking in with present day, in the show, at her house in this Vasquez Rocks. The whole sort of interconnection between the interrogation at Picard's house of the Romulan Death Squad guy, along with Soji and Rhonda's discussion where, that there's this massive portent of doom and destruction coming from Soji and who she is and what she's doing. But of course, I think ultimately, I just love the fact that we have Engage at the end. And whilst I have enjoyed my time on Federation Earth, it is time to go out into the deep, dark, cold and vacuum of space with Jean-Luc at the helm, along with the new sexy Captain Rios, of course, as well.
Shirtless sexy Captain
with his wounds and all his conquests. I probably sort of bed notches or something like that. I don't know. But certainly, looking forward to this. As I say, a bit like with Chris, I just kind of wish that Laris and Zebon had, tagged along as well.
Yeah.
I think that would have been, really good, but I don't think they are over yet.
No, I don't think that's the last season.
So let's see how they get reintegrated, shall we say.
Telling you, another attack by the Romulans on Shadow Picard, and the two of them plus number 1 fight them off. It'll be awesome. My general thoughts on this episode, really enjoyed it, but this is the final setup episode that's needed to turn this series into the Star Trek Picard series, exactly as you guys are saying. There needs to be stars, there needs to be a Trek. He's on the Trek now. Off we go with 7 episodes of them in space investigating this massive, interesting plot that's been set up really well in the first 3 episodes. But I'm kind of, at this point, I'm ready to go. I'm alongside this new crew. I want to see what they're all like, how they all work together, and how they get through this mystery in the rest of the episode. So a really good one. Overall, there's loads of great stuff that happened in this episode, but I'm now ready to go on board with them off into space.
Yep. Very quickly from me, I think everyone's already kind of guessed. I think personally, my pacing, I was ready like 40 minutes ago, about 1 episode ago. I don't know. I'm still happy it's done. I'm happy what we got. I think I'm not complaining. I just believe potentially it could have been sped up slightly more because I want the star. I want the Trek.
Yeah.
I want the space. But now that we're there, I'm happy to see where it goes. I kind of raised my points about where we are getting with Narek, what was going to happen with Lara, why we don't have Laris. Potentially she'll be reintroduced further down the line. That's the main thing. Also, the thing to remember is that season 2 of this is already confirmed, and 3, they got a green light already. I think while episode 1 aired, or just after episode 1 aired, about concepting season 3.
What could possibly happen
in season 3.
Right, yeah.
So the thing to remember is that we've already got at least another 17 episodes of this show. So I'm happy to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking forward to episode 4.
Cool.
Excellent stuff. That kind of closes out our thoughts on episode 3 of Star Trek Picard. If you want to send us your thoughts, as I mentioned earlier on, just email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or join us over at our Facebook group. We love if you join us on the Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Come in, say hello. It's nice to have chats when we're not podcasting as well. If you want to hear your voice of the podcast, you can email us with your thoughts to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or go over to the website tvpodcastindustries.com and record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts after you've watched the episode. We really do love hearing from everybody that sends in their thoughts to us. We have one last piece of business. Off to 10 forward.
Yes, the 10 forward pub quiz and the question for episode 3. Remember, send in your answers to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Just tag it with the question or questions and pub quiz. Yeah. The Picard pub quiz. Grab yourself a Klingon Raktakjino, that Klingon coffee. Probably haven't pronounced that right. You can maybe sexy it up with a bit of the Rios liquor that he was chucking on his wounds as well.
Spanish it up or Irish it up.
Yeah, exactly. Or a bit of Tia Maria, so it's a Calypso Raktakjino. Nice. For sure, yes. But the question is, what year is the Chateau Picard vintage drank by Raffi and Jean-Luc as they dredge up the past?
JL, as she
calls it. Or JL,
well.
yes, indeed.
That's interesting, and there's a little Easter egg in that one as well. So have a look, check out what year it is, and you'll see the Easter egg pretty quickly as well. So yeah, excellent. So the question for this week is, what year is the Chateau Picard vintage drank by Raffi and Jean-Luc as they dredge up the past? Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us, fellow Trekkers and Trekkies. We'll be back next week with episode 4 of Star Trek Picard, but some slight changes from this point onwards. As we've mentioned, we got these 3 episodes as screeners, so we've been lucky enough to be able to record these episodes and have them ready and available as soon as the embargo lifts for the reviews. This is the last of those episodes, so it means we'll be able to watch the episodes just as at the same time as everybody else. We'll record on either Friday or Saturdays usually, and we'll have the episodes out later than that. So probably Saturday or Sunday you'll hear our episode discussion for episode 4. But the good news is that means you're able to send in your feedback after you've seen the episode, and we'll discuss it immediately on the podcast. So yeah, make sure you send in your feedback as soon as you've watched the episode.
Exactly. And remember, fellow Trekkers and Trekkies, support us any way you can. Share the love, share the podcast, rate us, leave a review, or you can head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you can also support us over there.
Yes, we'll be back next week. Gentlemen, I think it's time we say goodbye.
Yes, thank you, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. Again, a pleasure speaking with you. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and engage.
And if you can possibly record a podcast in the same room as you're at a podcast house, it's awesome.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming over.
It's okay. Next time you're coming to me.
Excellent. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Make it so.
Bye.